your classmates that you value, right? That you value a relationship with the Lord, that you are at least intrigued by being in here, or you don't like to stand out in the cold. Whatever it may be, I'm glad that you're here this morning. I want to share with you out of Proverbs chapter 16 and verse number 9. The Bible says this: the mind of man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. The mind of man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. Now, Proverbs is part of what's called the wisdom literature, so it gives us a bunch of really practical instructions of how to live in this world. And so this proverb here in Proverbs 16 and verse 9, where it says, the mind of man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps, is so practical for you. Some of you are seniors, some of you are probably 7th grade. Geez, 6th graders in here? Some 6th graders came? All right, thanks for coming. Some 6th graders, okay? So you're at this stage of life where you're trying to figure out what you want your life to look like. And you may have this lavish picture of what it's going to look like, right? When everybody starts talking about what their careers are going to be, I was a high school teacher too, right? When everybody starts talking about what their careers are going to be and all of that, everybody wants to be doctors, engineers, lawyers, rocket scientists, professional athletes, whatever it might be, everything that makes a lot of money, right? Everybody, that's what they want to be. And so you have this picture in your mind of exactly what your life is going to look like, and where you're going to go to school, and who you're going to marry, and how many kids you're going to have, and what kind of car you're going to drive, and all of these things. And those dreams and aspirations, those are always good things to have. But at the same time, you have a very limited input on what that's actually going to look like. Right? You can show up every day and work towards those dreams and work toward those goals, but there's a lot of uncontrollable things in your life. Right? There's sickness that can happen in your life that can deter those plans. There's financial issues that can deter those plans. There's all kinds of things that can happen to you in this life that you have no control over that can affect this plan that you have in your mind that you think is going to ultimately make you happy. But it says that the mind of man plans his ways. We have all of these elaborate plans. I don't know if I've shared it in here before, but when I was in high school, I was going to be a dentist. That's what I was going to do. Because my mind was thinking, I can make a lot of money. There's not a whole lot of terrible emergency surgeries, and the odds of somebody dying in the dentist's office is very, very, very minimal. So I was like, this is like the perfect thing. And then I got into college, and I started playing ball, and I started doing all this stuff, and I realized, man, I really want to coach. And so I was like, I'm gonna sell out to coaching, and I don't want to coach high school. I'm gonna coach in college. So I sold out to that, and I got finished playing baseball in college. I got to stay on as a grad assistant, which is kind of a really good way to get your foot in the door. And then I couldn't afford to keep doing that. I got paid $1,000 a semester. And I literally took my $1,000 check and went right back to the business office and handed it to them. So I made $0, net profit of $0. That's not really a great way to live. And so I ended up coming back home, and so I started coaching high school. And now I was like, okay, well, I'm going to coach high school forever until I'll just do this for as long as I possibly can because I enjoy it. And then the Lord called me into ministry. So then I was still coaching, still doing ministry, and I was like, well, I can do both. It's the best of both worlds. And then I got called into FCA, and now I do this full time. See, I had plans of what I thought that I wanted my life to look like, but the Lord had other plans. He directed my steps. And I've been more blessed in a spiritual aspect. I've been more blessed in the time that I've got to spend with my family. I haven't had to miss a single practice that my little boy has had. I haven't had to miss a single game where if I was coaching, I would have missed a bunch already. Financially, we were in a better spot than we've ever been, and it's not because we pursued that. It's just we've been blessed in that. But it didn't fit the plan that I had in my mind, but the Lord had a different plan for me. In the same way, you may have this plan of what you think your life is going to look like, what you want it to be, and God may have a totally different plan for you. And you have to be willing to walk in what our Pastor Tony talks about, walk in surrender, of saying like, Lord, my life doesn't belong to me, it belongs to you. Whatever you want me to do in this life, this is what I'm going to do. One more story for you. My grandfather is one of the greatest men that I've ever been around in my entire life. And whenever he was a kid, he was 15, 16, he actually went to PRC when it was the old high school where the elementary is now. And his father passed away when he was 15. And he was the youngest of his siblings, so it was just him and his mom left at the house. And so he had to go get a job because she didn't work, so he had to have something to make money. So he went to work for a bricklayer, which is really, really, really hard work for not a lot of money. And so he started working for this bricklayer and just making it, trying to help keep, the lights on for him and his mom and pay the bills and do all of this stuff. And the best thing that happened to my grandfather was Vietnam. Because he got drafted into the military, and when he got drafted in the military, he had God's hand of protection on it because he didn't have to go into battle. He got stationed to Germany. And when he got stationed in Germany, he got placed inside of this shop where he learned how to work on tanks and big trucks, and he learned how to become a diesel mechanic. So whenever he got sent back home, him and my grandmother got married, they had my mom, and so he had a new set of skills that he did not have prior to any of this. And so he goes and he starts working at mechanic shops. And he works at all these different mechanic shops, and it's kind of a hit and miss sort of thing, where he'd get to work somewhere for 6 or 8 months and they'd cut people back, or he'd work somewhere for a year and they'd cut people back, and all this stuff, and eventually he gets hired by a company in New Orleans. So they live on Joe Smith Road. They've lived there their entire life. And so he would get in his car every morning at about 4:30, and he would drive to New Orleans to work at this big company and all this stuff. And he hated it. He hated the drive to New Orleans. He hated being down there. And so he starts praying all the time, God, give me a different job. Lord, give me a different job. I don't like this job. I don't want to be here. I hate to travel. He'd leave at 4:30 in the morning. He'd get home at 6. He did not want to do that. He felt like he was missing so much. And jobs came open here locally, like in Picayune-Pearl County area that was real close, even Slidell, which was much closer. Jobs that he was really qualified for based on the skills that he had acquired. And every time he applied for it, he didn't get it. He didn't get it. He didn't get it. He didn't get it. And finally, he just keeps praying, like, God, give me a different job. And as he's driving to work one day, he said, the Lord spoke to him and said, will you just stop? I'm trying to provide for you. See, when I was in 7th grade, my grandfather came to visit us when we lived in California, and he had a massive heart attack. And this dude's like the toughest dude I ever had because I've ever been around, because he had a heart attack, and he looks at us, he says, can we just walk and get some aspirin? And so he didn't tell anybody for about 4 hours that he had a heart attack. So he come, they do open heart surgery, they stayed with us for a while he healed up. Well, when he came back, when he went back to work, they had to move him around because of he wasn't physically able to work in the shop anymore, and that's just not how he's wired. But here's the kicker to this whole story. Is that this job that he didn't want all this time, this job that he kept trying to get rid of, because he took that job and he kept that job, he had benefits. So he didn't have to pay for that surgery out of pocket. He had retirement. He had all these things that wouldn't have been possible in any of these other jobs that he had worked, because God was providing for him in that. And the cool part of this story for me is because my grandfather got to retire when I was in 7th grade. That means that he missed all of about 5 of my college baseball games over 4 years. He had to travel around. You have to come watch me play. You have to come watch me sit on the bench. Because that happened a lot. In your picture, that happens. Right? This is, he got to make lifetime memories with me because the Lord provided that. So you may have plans in your life, things that you think that you want to accomplish, but the Lord is ultimately going to direct your steps. And that relationship with Jesus is the most crucial part of that whole thing. That's got to be the number one relationship in your life. Because that act of surrender and living your life in a way that is pleasing to God, it's got to start with that. It can't be, God, I'm going to do this. I need you to bless me. It's got to be, Lord, what do you want me to do? And that's what I'll do. So if you don't have that relationship with Jesus, you're not at the right starting point. It's got to be there. That's the beauty of the gospel, of saying, like, my life no longer belongs to me, it now belongs to Christ. Right? That I understand that, I failed God's standard, that I'm a sinner, that I live life and I am trapped in this broken world because of my sins. But God, you offer me a way out because you sent Jesus to die on the cross for me, and that he died in my place. And then now by faith and trust in him, I now can be reconciled to you, and now I can live in that plan, and I can walk in that plan and walk in that path because that gateway has been opened because of the finished work of Jesus on the cross. When you understand that, there's freedom in that, because now your life doesn't belong to you anymore, it belongs to him. And when it belongs to him, then the results are up to him. And I just show up every day and I just want to work as hard as I can with the opportunity that God gives me. And ultimately, he's going to get the results. The mind of man makes his plans, but the Lord directs his paths. Ask yourself today, as you get ready to leave here, who is directing my life? Is it me or is it God? Who is it that's ultimately making my plans? Because if it's me, then I have to surrender that to him and trust that he's going to put me exactly where he wants me and needs me to be. All right? Can I pray for you? Yep.